Welcome back to the Monkey Do podcast, where you can show off your writing successes and we can see what we can do to be like you. Today, we have someone I've had the pleasure of working with in the past, Austin Saylor of Full Harbor. And we're both sporting the merch today. Pretty nice. For the audience, how about you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Austin Saylor, run Full Harbor, and I'm a freelance motion designer. Classically trained as a graphic designer, found my way into motion design via shooting some video for the company I worked for, realizing I could put my graphics on the videos, and then discovering the cool stuff you can do in After Effects. And so then I took a couple of years and transitioned into doing animation only. And yeah, it's been like 5-ish years. The beginning stage was kind of fuzzy. It was like
Isn't that just
a
how it
gradient.
goes?
Yeah.
Like you sort of find yourself doing something and then you find out what it's called and then you're like, well, when did I start doing this? Was it maybe this project? I'm not sure really.
Yeah. I didn't stop and start. It was just, it bled into it. And I still carry all the other skills I learned from video and graphic design and marketing and all that kind of stuff at the company that I worked at, and do that for myself now in my own business.
Okay, so cool. What I'm hearing is not a writer.
I'm not a writer. Well, I am a writer, but I don't get paid to write specifically.
Well, you're a business owner, and that means you have to do a certain amount of writing. So there we go. And we're going to be looking at some of your writing success here today in the form of this right here. Your it looks like an email here. Oh, this is the email that was for us for the civilized animal thing. Hold on. Why does it pause the screen share? All right, here we go. I'll have to get that figured out.
So does that mean it's just like pausing the screen? You can't do anything with it?
Yeah, it's something I'm doing is making it auto pause, and I'm not sure what it is. But anyway, here we are with the screen share, and give us a little rundown. Why does this work? Why do you think this worked? Tell us a little bit about what sort of results you got from it. Did it overperform? Did it meet your expectations? You know, why did this one stick out to you, and why are you bringing this to us today?
Yeah, so some things that I thought were special about this email is, I've been sending emails for 5 or 6 years. Usually they've been like updates and thoughts about stuff. And this one's had a specific goal. Sometimes my goal is just to provide value and be there for my community. And this one was specifically, this is for you to learn how to write, and I want you to register. So I wanted it to be crystal clear what people were getting, but also still provide that value. And let's see, some of the things that I thought were interesting was that this performed about as well in terms of like open rate and click rate. It wasn't like a crazy amount more people clicked, but what was different about this one was that I had people reach out and say things like, whoa, this is a really cool story. Thanks for sharing this. And I had somebody mentioned it. We weren't even talking, just a friend of mine who happens to be on my email list. And she said something like, I was just reading your email today, and it just like stood out to me that like, it really felt like I was connecting with you as a person. And I know you already, but like, I felt like I know you better. And it was just, I can't remember the wording she used, but it was very much like a, whoa, that was different. That stood out to me. And when I get multiple people that mention something about like, that really stood out to me as different and better, I'm like, okay, what happened in here? Let's take a look.
So something in here really resonated and was really good communication. And let's take a look.
Yeah. So one of the things that I know that I did differently that I don't usually do is had been talking with Jordan about writing and really owning your story, being willing to tell your story your way and not follow a formula, which I don't typically follow formulas or do swipe copy, but I found myself writing what I feel like people want to hear or
Mm-hmm.
writing in a way that feels like a newsletter.
Yeah.
I was actually, before we got on this call, I was writing a newsletter, and I caught myself going, oh, this is real like newsletter talk and not me talk. And something that I was able to do inside of this email was tell a story that popped in my head a couple days before, and I connected it. It was just one of those little, oh, that seems familiar enough. And I was able to tell the story in a way that tied into the bigger story of using stories to sell and to make people feel connected emotionally.
Right.
Yeah, so it was something that I did differently. That was the one thing I know for sure I did differently, was just be
Purposefully
willing, yeah,
locking a story in.
hmm and
Okay.
being willing to tell a longer story. Like it's 4, 5, 6 paragraphs long of a story. Typically, I'm like, I want to, let's get this over with. People don't read long emails; they got
Right.
stuff to do. But this time, I was willing to tell the whole story well. And that was one other thing that was really different about this one for me.
Okay. Cool. Do you wanna take us through this and share some thoughts then?
Yeah. Let's see. So one thing that I did do, and I know that can be, well, I don't usually do the TLDR thing, but I do usually have a shorter email. So
Mm-hmm.
too long didn't read. I just wanted to get people, like, if you're not interested in the full story and you just know you want to register for this thing, you forgot to before, here, just do it. Like, you can
Mm-hmm.
just do that, get on with your day. That's fine. So I wanted to give that thing quickly and clearly that this is to register up at the top.
Yeah, just a nice tight summary here with the action step at the top, and then repeated at the bottom,
Yep.
essentially. Yep. That's a great way of respecting people's time for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I always appreciate that when people will, they're not expecting me to read for 5 minutes to then get to the, what are you asking for? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that worked well. I've also learned that it's very effective to have a link to whatever you want people to click on multiple times in the email, instead of just like the one text link at the bottom. Like, give people multiple times, and it's basically every link is a call to action.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's 2 here at the top, one in the middle, and then one in the PS.
Right, right. So we've got, like you said, 2 out the gate, and this is kind of the professional button, and then the
Mm-hmm.
more um, common, like explicit in text link right here.
Yep.
And then we've got this even more like polished kind of blend of those earlier 2. So this is like a reprise of the 2 buttons up above combined. And then down here we've got this just reminder, if they scroll all the way to the bottom,
Yeah.
it's
Something
right
I've heard from several people is that one of the most frequently clicked things is the PS.
here. Mm-hmm.
Just PS. I don't know. Like, there's something special about the PS, and I always just have, like, whatever the main call to action is, make sure
If
there's a PS for it.
if you want my opinion on that, I have not done extensive research, but the
Mm-hmm.
PS is essentially all of the above here. Everything above it is its own like story, and the inclusion of something that's deliberately broken out re-engages them.
Mm.
So they go through and they've heard the pitch. The PS then is like, hey, take action.
Yeah.
And so they have to choose again, right? They have to frame up again onto the PS. And so as long as it's short, there's a clickable. If anything was convincing in there, they may have been lulled into like the concept. And so the PS is like this little like bump
Mm-hmm.
that goes, oh yeah, I do actually want that.
Yep.
And sort of that reset that you need to
I've even
get
seen people do pre-S's too.
pre-S.
Pre-S up at the top. It's kind of like instead of saying TLDR, it's like pre-S.
I
I
have
don't know.
not actually seen that. Do they use it like a TLDR?
Yeah, it's like if I had just replaced TLDR with like PRE period S period.
Interesting.
I've seen people do that too. And
That's
if
neat.
nothing else, it's unique and novel and goes, oh, that's cute. Yeah.
I wonder how that shows up in previews, like when you're going through your email inbox
Oh,
and
yeah.
the preview. I wonder how that looks. Anyway, I'll have to think about that. But so yeah, let's go through this. We've got this TLDR. It's a short, tight little summary with your CTAs highlighted right here. Um,
Yeah.
great.
Do you want me to go into any bit of what the story was?
Yeah, just walk us through like maybe um, how this connected with your goal, perhaps a little bit, and
Yeah.
why you chose to include it, and go on.
Yeah. So basically what happened was I think making breakfast. I can't remember what was happening in my life at that moment, but just mundane life stuff. And this like thought popped in my head of this old dream that I had. So like I'm a motion designer now, but I used to dream of making physical products and selling them on Etsy, and actually kind of did that for a little while I had a full-time job. I was making leather wallets, leather
Hmm.
purses and bags and stuff like that. And so while I was in that phase of dreaming of what's next, I was very into Etsy, and they did such a good job of telling creator stories. So they would highlight people's successes, and that got me dreaming like, oh, that's what success could look like. So I just remember very specifically reading an article about a shop that like kind of hit the jackpot. Target wanted them to make a ton of whatever their cool egg, I think it was like a ceramic egg or something.
Hmm.
Um, and they wanted it for like a ton of their stores, which put them in an interesting, good problem solving place where they're like, how do we make, thousands of these things when we're used to making like, dozens.
Dozens. Yeah.
And that got me thinking, I love problem solving. So I'm like, that's such a good problem to have. I wonder how they fix this. And I'm like just completely engrossed in this story. And I for some reason that story has stuck out to me, and I hadn't thought about it in a long time. And I thought, man, what a good job Etsy did to tell this beautiful story of one of their creators to inspire other people to use their platform. And it totally sucked me in. And that hit me. And it just so happened that when I knew I needed to write an email about storytelling,
You pulled one of the powerful, influential stories that hit you,
mhm.
right? Because this is
It's
this
just
is
like
a
synapses connecting and firing and saying, oh, this is like that. And
yeah.
I think that's one of the coolest things about stories is that it's not a literal exact parallel, but or it's not like on top of each other, not exactly aligned with the like what we're talking about, but it's close enough. And all that takes for a story to be like great and connect this to that is have just enough of a bridge. And that bridge was, I was inspired by a story, other people will be inspired by your story, so be
Hmm.
willing to tell your story.
Yeah, and that's a really key thing. That's building bridges. Like that's what we call communication. Stories are how people communicate, and like what science has shown us. There was a TED talk about this. Is that when you tell someone a story, your brain waves literally synchronize,
Ooh.
and that's even if you like switch languages and tell your other friend the story, that goes across age and race and all these other normal like barriers. It even crosses cultures, but it synchronizes. You don't have to use the exact same words as long as you're telling the same story, which is really fascinating. But story is extremely powerful, and it is the cornerstone of those communications that like commune, like to make to one
Mm,
communication. That's what it is.
that's really cool. I'm taking notes on that. That's neat.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I might include the link to that TED talk here. It's in one of our lessons in Thoroughbred, which is, I was hunting around looking for resources on the power of story and to get a really juicy example, and I found that one. But yeah, I talk talk about stuff like, why is story powerful, how you can use it, that sort of a stuff. So some kind of high theory stuff in addition to all the practical stuff, because I'm all about the practical. If you aren't actually seeing value, if you aren't changing the way you do things with the information, then I'm not really interested. I mean, we've got this, most people that I know, which tend to be a lot of nerds, let's be fair, there's this idea of just like information is power, and I just gather, like, oh, echidnas do this weird thing, and it's like, okay, yeah, but like, how can you actually use that? How does that actually make your life better? Or is it this false, like, well, I'm better because I know this?
Yep.
And
I was thinking about that the other day. Like literally, I'm learning and reading some things about history and science, and then I'm like, I don't know how to use this. But sometimes, you don't know what knowledge is going to be useful until it becomes useful, and you're like, haha.
for sure, like it's definitely good to just expose yourself to new ideas or new things, to read history, like especially real stories, even if they don't seem really relevant. As long as they're actually like nonfiction, you're going to be able to pull something out of it. That's the real thing. Is fiction is very powerful, but because it is false, it doesn't have the immediate payoff that nonfiction does. If you read a nonfiction book about what someone did or how someone built something, or like how a concept came to be and how it evolved from, this other concept, that's something that is very real. But fiction, because it's not grounded in that same way, can't have that immediate impact in the same fashion. We talk about that difference as well, because sometimes you want to tell a theoretical story about something, or how something might go down, or a theoretical example that is sort of the sum of your experience with client work, or something like that, versus this is a real story that happened to me. There's different places for those two. They have different impacts.
Yep, totally.
So you transition out of telling this story that impacted you, and you start explaining it here about how having that vision got you moving. And then other stories were continuing to move you and connect you. And then you go into this section here about how selling is service.
Yep.
Right? As a part of the story, right? You're shifting people's view of the story by saying this action isn't this thing. This action is this thing.
Yep. I'm glancing through that paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah, you're actually helping people by creating an animated explainer. Yeah, I think in that scenario, I was tapping into what I know my audience feels, which is icky selling. Selling is icky. It doesn't feel good. And I don't know where that comes from specifically, but I've felt it myself. But it's so helpful to shift my mindset from I'm trying to get them to give me something. It's no, I want to be able to serve you.
Yeah, there's two components to it. One is we have this idea that money is evil and that wanting money is bad, especially creative types. There's this idea of selling out, right? Or like, making art. Art has infinite value, so you can't. It's hard to like justify putting a price tag on it, right? It instinctively kind of feels like cheating almost on your art. But in reality, what I view price tags as is price tags are two things. One, they indicate the value of something, but what that causes is more important, and that is they make people take it seriously and approach it differently. If you've got $1 cup of coffee, you might just guzzle it down, right? But if that's like a $40 bottle of wine, you're going to like really enjoy it. And that simple focus of like, no, I want to savor this, can ground you and bring you down into the moment rather than just being a caloric intake.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a sense, price tag is story.
Yeah, that's interesting.
In a nutshell. And there's numerous other factors, I'm sure, but I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. And so like when you sell, what you're doing is you're inviting, a story, because every product, the reason a product sells is that it makes someone go through a transformation, right? Even like a little pen, this enables me to write. This enables me to take notes. This performs a service to me that is worth the 10 cents or whatever it is as part of a pack
Mm-hmm.
that I buy, right? Like I pay so that I can have the tool. And that's kind of how everything goes. Even something as, ethereal as music, it makes you feel better. It reminds you of something. It bonds with your memories or helps you process your emotions, or prevents you from getting distracted if you're kind of an earbuds all the time kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah,
so
that's interesting.
so like it's all about the need that you're filling, the how you're helping someone. That's the price tag indicates that this is helpful.
Yep.
And to what degree this is helpful. At least that's what we call it in the free market anyway. But the so do you have any more comments on this before I kind of take over here?
Let's see. I don't think I have too much else to say about it, because then I just transition into, all right, I'm excited that Jordan and Paul are going to help you, that this is, you need to be able to tell stories, sign up, and then I guess there's the one bit of like beneath that last text link, Jordan will be covering the exact approach in this masterclass, how to double your audience's engagement while cutting your writing in half. It's like giving someone a very specific thing that
Vision, yeah.
yeah. So it goes from storytelling is great, it's helped me a ton, I want you to learn how, and this is the result that you can dream about having.
Right. So this is actually really cool. So when I started kind of putting this idea together for the course I have, the Thoroughbred Entrepreneur, I had this idea that you've got these patterns, these stories that people tell that work, that connect with people, and what does that mean? And so I started looking at people's work to build these templates. How do I build a story that works? Well, you find a story that works and you fill the details in that are relevant to you, right? And I kept finding the same ones. I thought, oh, here's somebody that has something that works that comes from a very different place. Nope, same one. And the same thing is true here when I was looking at this. You use 3 different templates that I teach in Thoroughbred in this.
That's great.
And you do it in a really cool way, because the whole email conforms to a tripartite template. And then each one of those sections conforms to a template as well. So it's actually really nuanced, and you're not a writer. So
right.
there you go. Power of story is going.
Cool.
So this first bit that you do here with this story, obviously, this summary, we've talked about it. It's great. Very good way of saving people's time and respecting their attention. The other side here, we go into this where, they're giving us more attention and we're unfolding this section here is informative. You kind of establish your credentials, your authority as a business person, right? You're remembering this real thing, and then you're relaying the relevance of it, right? Like this, they're struggling, they've got to pull off the impossible, right? And you're telling this story of success and then painting how it affected you, your showcasing the future that it carried you to, right? Like, I'm here now, but this is why, right? And so you're going through and being like, this is really where I was. This here is the, why it's relevant is because it inspired me that what was impossible is possible, right? That's a good summary of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the future is basically saying stories convinced me, right? Um, and so then after we use this informative template, then you switch here to where you start talking about selling, right? You relate stories to selling and connecting people.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a template we call the persuasive model, where you create an emotional connection, where you use the word slimy and trust, right? And you're conflicting this and sort of pushing people emotionally. You're like, I'm inspired by news stories, and you're benefiting people. Then you're giving them the sort of the practical assistance of, like, this here, like you're serving them. That's very practical, grounding advice. It's a different way of thinking. And then you follow that up with the paradigm shift of sort of how to use your story, and you leverage, here's the answer. It's right in this link here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go through this last section here. You start going. It isn't quite complete, but you have a lot of the elements in what I call the salvation system, which you basically, these are the ways that you produce trust in something, right? This is you got to have these pillars of trust to get somebody to go up to the next level, right? And invest. And so you do things um, like there's the promise that your involvement matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
That there is conscious participation. It's not something that enacts on you or anything like that. Like, your use matters. That's a part of the salvation system. You've got this this here is a guarantee, right?
Mm-hmm.
This will change everything, right? That's a guarantee. That's another part of the salvation system.
Mm.
This see you soon is personalizing. In other words, you are there. It's a real person. It's not just, go sit on a bench by yourself and your life will be changed, right? There's a connection with a real person. So there's 3 elements, and you go through, and there's the fellowship. Um, there's what's called fellowship here, where you're joining with other people in the live class. So you're hitting these pillars that are part of another template that is kind of deliberately offering salvation from a problem.
That's
And
interesting.
you're building these trust, and you did all of this within the persuasive template, where this whole first chunk here is, once again, connecting emotionally. You've got this story of a beginning fledgling business, right? And then you give them some practical assistance where you're talking about stories. And then the paradigm shift is the salvation section, where you're saying this will transform your life. Just come on, it's right here. These experts will help you. And so you've got these story arcs in these templates. And that's why I think this has so much power and resonance, is because it has an overarching thing, and then each section has this smaller arc that really carries them through this emotional journey, and it syncs them up, and it brings them to this point in the process that really is persuasive. I mean, there's a reason I call that the persuasive model.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really persuades them to act and to engage and to come check this out. So as far as that goes, I think that's what I would pin this as being really successful. I did actually have in my notes here that surrounding it with a summary here and then having this nice PS at the end were just really good business choices, because you want to respect people's time, and you want to give them, you want to do everything in your power to encourage them to actually get the good things. One of the things we've talked already a little bit about slimy sales and stuff. Slimy sales are, I'm trying to get you to buy something. But good salesmanship is, this will help you. Right?
Yeah.
I want you to have this because this will help you. And when you put your sales packages, when you put that together, you want to say, well, what are you trying to get? Oh, here, this will help you get that. It's worth this much. And what that it's worth this much, there's this sort of like mathematical analysis our brain does where it's like, I will see a greater return on it than I paid. Right? That's the nature of a fair exchange is, if I get this tool will then work for me, and with my energy multiply that value. Right? Because if it doesn't pay off, you're not going to buy it.
Right.
And so essentially sales proves that literally everything is an investment. Every single thing you do is an investment. The burger you buy from the fast food shop is an investment, in the same way that buying something on the stock market. Supporting an artist, patronage, is the same sort of investment as raising your kids. You are not only building the world around you, but you're investing in different things. Sometimes it's in yourself, sometimes it's in a community, sometimes it is in one person specifically, and it's kind of a linear thing. But even just linearly supporting somebody, like paying an artist, dropping a tip in the piano player's little jar, even though that feels linear, what it's also doing is you are supporting the world that you want to live in.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like every
piano player.
I think often about how like every dollar is a vote. You're voting for this to win.
Yeah.
You're saying, I want the world I want to live in needs more of this. Whether
And
that's
so,
me having that thing so I can build a thing. Yeah, it's interesting.
and the reverse is also true. When you build a thing and offer it for sale, you're also saying, this is the world that I want to make. This is what I'm doing. And that's part of why in the Thoroughbred Entrepreneur, we focus so heavily on teaching you how to use your voice. It's so critical. You can't just hire a professional writer and expect them to just know your vision. Like, you started your business for a reason. Like, there's a vision that you had, there's a world you wanted to make, there's a change you wanted to make, and you've got that motivation in you still. That's why using your voice is so important. And that's literally the first unit that we teach, is how to get your voice into people's ears. Right? How do you actually communicate yourself effectively? How do you reach across that gap and build that bridge?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I really liked what you did with the the layering of the templates. It's like a perfect example, and you haven't been through our program. Right?
I've seen it. I've looked at part of it, but I've definitely not gone all the way through it yet. And so
you don't have the graduation cap.
I do
sure.
not.
But like, this is a picture perfect example almost. Like, there's a few little tweaks we might make, mostly to the last section, to really like nail it down. But you can see why this is effective, because it's got these arcs and these templates, and they fit together and they work together to create an effect. And that isn't manipulative. It's not like you're being Ivan Pavlov here. What you're doing is you're syncing up so that they're seeing what you're offering. And they're seeing this tool that's available. Because providing them that opportunity is valuable in and of itself. I mean, that's why Walmart exists, is because it's like, we have everything. Right? You can come here and get everything you need in one stop. So Um, anyway, what's your biggest number one takeaway from writing this email? What did it teach you the most, writing and looking at this email?
I think one thing is that I guess being willing to tell a story all the way through it, and not needing to just get to the point super quick. Um, that was something that I felt like I let go while I was writing it and just went, you know what, the story is going to be what it is. I'm going to tell the story all the way through and not be overly concerned with, like, it can only
Hmm.
take one paragraph, or the paragraphs need to be one, maybe two sentences long, because
Or
people, you know,
such and such word count
yeah. And
or
so
whatever.
I was able to release the the pressure that no one puts on me but myself to be
Yeah.
something that no one's ever asked me to do or be. And just, I don't know, it was a great experience to let go of the constraints that I thought I needed to be within.
Hmm.
um
Actually focusing on the objective instead of the metrics,
yeah.
right? In other
Yep.
words, sacrificing quote unquote efficiency for real actual power.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very very that's a powerful realization. That's really neat. Um,
And it's cool to hear that this hit on so many interesting, like, story arcs and, um
yeah,
like,
did you know you
using.
wrote something that intricate and like
No.
connected? Well, there you go. Right, it's pretty neat, huh?
Yeah.
And that's part of the goal of the Thoroughbred program is the really successful people probably have learned to do all this stuff instinctively. It's not magic, right? Success isn't magic. Good communication isn't magic. It's a skill. And you can learn from the experience and like put it together, or you can sit down in a little classroom or an online course and actually learn,
Mhm.
right? It's just a
Well,
matter of
that's so, like, I've learned how to write by writing. Let's see. I can quickly look at my numbers and see that I have sent, if I go to the dashboard, I've sent, oh, that's how many emails I've sent to individual email addresses, but it's like 600 or 363,000 emails have been sent over the last few years.
that's a
I
lot.
haven't I haven't written that many, but it's gone to that many email addresses. But I've written for almost once a week for the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay, you're
And
talking
so,
at least 250 emails then.
yeah, so, like, I've put in a lot of time, and over time you start realizing what works, what doesn't, what
Hmm.
resonates, what doesn't. Even though I'm not, like, tracking analytics, and I know, like, I don't track those kind of things specifically to figure that out, but over time my brain's figuring it out in the background.
Yeah,
And it's like, but it took me that long to get to a place where I write an email that has an impact that strong.
right. And even then, like we talked about in the last section, you might be missing a piece that would really bump it to that next level, or
Right.
you might be missing this piece that really connects it with this, or and
Yes,
that's
it's great to be able to plug into the matrix and go, I want to download a bunch of great stuff so that I don't have to do the 5 years. Let's condense this into five
yeah,
weeks
and
and get
long
90% of the way
ago,
there.
civilization decided these things called schools were really awesome for that exact purpose, right? Like um, training was fundamentally practical, and
Yeah.
you know, I had 12 years in a classroom and didn't learn the power of story, right? I
Hmm.
was told do this pattern, write this essay in this pattern, but I wasn't told that the pattern is powerful because this. So
Yeah, the 5 paragraph essay structure is so, like, what? Like, okay.
what it is it's enough writing that coherency of ideas has to be present, but it's also short enough for a teacher to grade. I mean, that's what it is it's
Yeah.
all about the system's value as a judge, not actual like practical skill for the student. Because
Mm-hmm.
outside of a classroom, when's the last time you've written a 5-paragraph essay? But if you can analyze those 5-paragraph essays for why they're powerful or effective, you might be able to kind of swing that into writing a short email.
Right. Yeah.
With enough practice, experience, et cetera. And so that's some of what we address. And it's really neat to see it in the wild. Every time I look for a new template, I'm usually astounded that I find something I've already discovered and pulled in as a template. And I do want to point out, there are people out there, professional storytellers, that believe there's only one story.
The hero's journey.
Yeah, the monomyth, Joseph Campbell. I don't agree, but there are legitimate professionals out there that hold that standpoint. But yeah, I completely disagree. So anyway, before we go wandering too far into my criticism of someone who is actually like one of the big names in storytelling and embarrass myself unnecessarily, we today have Austin Saylor here from Full Harbor. You can reach out to him and talk more, start a conversation with fullharbor.com or on Instagram at Full Harbor. Thanks for coming on, Austin. This was fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for helping me understand my email better. That was awesome. I feel like I got some nice insights, and I'm excited to keep doing more of the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
The best part about this show is getting to tell everybody, 2 thumbs up, here's what you did awesome. And that's the whole point of the Monkey Do podcast. For you listeners, if you want to go down in the comments and nominate somebody that you'd like to see, or show us a piece of writing that really you think is done well and you want to know why, that's what this is all about, is coming and getting a professional view on it, even if you're not a professional writer. Because we aren't all professional writers, and we all have to do some writing and communication. So come show us what you did, and we can all learn from it. But good job, Austin. This is some great pattern usage here that
Thanks, Paul.
really resonated on a lot of levels. So yep, fullharbor.com does some motion stuff. So if you're interested in any of that, or even learning about it a little bit, or talking to a cool guy, there you go.
Yeah.
Signing off.